Welcome back. Now, tonight's guest is a ghost host from Lantern Tours, one of Australia's top ghost tour companies. Please welcome Jason Ralphs. Yeah. How you doing, Jason?
Yeah, pretty good. How are you doing?
Excellent. I love the term ghost host. Do you enjoy that as well, or do you wish it was just, something more professional sounding and fancy?
Well, ghost host is all right. I do prefer a tour guide, but
Yeah.
Ghost host is a little bit more fun.
Doesn't rhyme. I don't want to be a complainer, but it doesn't rhyme. All right, fine. So when did you what drew you to become a ghost tour guide?
Well, I grew up in the UK. It probably gives it a little bit away. I come from a little village between Crewe and Sandbach in Cheshire, and it was a place that was full of folklore, lots of different ghost stories. And what you found with them is that they're usually tied to some pretty horrible people from the past or horrible things that would happen. They were more like warnings to people. Moved to Australia, lived in Perth for a little while, and then when I moved to Melbourne, I completely fell in love with the place. There's so many old buildings around the city, there's so much to get the imagination going, and definitely has quite a bleak history as well.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. So what do you when you do these tours, how much are you believing in them? Are you a skeptic or are you a true believer?
Well, I would say I'm around 50-50 or so.
Okay.
The main reason I say that is that I try and be skeptical. But I've had so many, I suppose, strange experiences on the tour, and I've heard so many stories from people on the tour as well, from the general public. Some of them have given me nightmares quite badly. So I believe when people tell me a strange story, most people are pretty credible. And I've seen things that are, well, if they're not true, or if there isn't actually a ghost in the building or something strange happening, will probably mean that I've gone quite mad.
Wow. Well, tell us about one of those. Tell me about a time when you thought you were going mad.
All right, well, this happened quite recently. So one of the places where Lantern does tours is Pentridge Prison. And Pentridge, it's a bit like the old Melbourne Jail. You have 3 tiers, and the exit is on the 2nd tier. Now, at the end of the tour, we let people walk around for around 15 minutes, then we blow a whistle, everyone has to leave, and our job is to sort of close all of the doors in the division that we're in. So the exit's up here, we blow the whistle, everyone starts to leave from the bottom floor, look to the bottom, and they've left a bunch of doors open. So I say, okay, I've got to go down, I've got to go and close all the doors. I'm the only person left in the division at the time. I walk to the end of the division on the 2nd floor, go down the steps, every single door's closed.
Yeah, I don't love that.
I wasn't annoyed, it was very helpful. It saved me around 30 seconds of the job.
But all the doors closing at once has a creepy feeling. I don't adore that. So you do tours in the prison?
Yeah, in the prison. We also do Williamstown as well, old homesteads like the one in Altona. And then, of course, there's the old city tour that we do as well.
Yeah, right. So what are the stories in the prison that turn into ghost stories?
Well, for example, the D Division where we do the tours, a lot of the stories that you hear from guards, usually it only closed in 1997, so the guards usually have a lot of strange stories that they like to tell when they come on the tour. Most of the time they haven't mentioned it to other people until they come on the tour. So I remember one particular story came from a guard. I believe he sent the story in, and it was all about how there was a lady in a watchtower, one of the guards at the time. She was looking out towards Coburg Lake, where the old Bluestone Quarry used to be. And as she looked out there, she saw 6 men crossing the bridge towards the prison. Now, when those men reached the end of the bridge, they completely disappeared, but apparently they all had shackles around their legs. They were all dressed in old prison uniforms.
Oh, no, I don't like it at all. I don't like it. And do you think there is, is there a purpose to these stories? Do you feel like people see things that are trying to communicate with them, or is it just random in your experience in hearing these stories?
Well, I suppose it depends on the type of story. When you hear a story from someone who honestly believes themselves that they've had a very strange experience, then most of the time there isn't really a moral to it, other than they went back home and they saw something strange one day. Yeah. But when it comes to stories like the stories you have in Melbourne of people going down laneways, bumping into strange women in white whilst they're down there, those figures usually are tied to horrible things that happened in the past and terrible things that happened to people. So in a lot of ways, I'd say the purpose, in a folklore sort of way, is, I suppose, as a bit of a warning to remind us of how terrible things can get if we're not careful, and to remind us of how bleak things used to be.
Yeah, I like it. So tell me, and this is something I've actually been meaning to check up with someone, do you have any experience in exorcism? Because we actually do have a ghost that appears in this studio. He looks like a well-dressed man from like the 1930s. And we can talk to him, but he never manages to communicate back to us. It's really... Look, there he is. See, how can we get rid of him? No?
Well, what I'd recommend doing.
Yeah.
I was doing a tour one night. We actually do sleepovers sometimes.
Oh my God,
people
no.
spend money to stay in prisons these days.
No.
But I was up on the third floor there at Pentridge, and I felt a massive slap against my chest. So I just realised my microphone, so I probably gave
Yep.
someone a massive headache. But I felt extremely sick. I went back home. And I'd been up for 24 hours. I told my fiance what happened. There's a big twist. Somehow I have a fiance. Somehow I went to bed. I'd been up really late. She could hear people walking around the apartment. She could hear them talking. And my phone kept on going off, but when she got to it, it would switch itself off. There was no record anyone called. I went to work the next day. At the time, my day job was booking people into weddings. I just wanted to do something more miserable on the weekends. And, well, I don't know where she got all this from. She set up a shrine, burnt some incense, and splashed some holy water about. And I felt 100% better when I got back home. So it might have just been Mondayitis. But if you are having a problem with a ghost appearing, incense, holy water, you should be fine.
Wow, that's so useful. I'm going to do that straight away. In the meantime, please thank Jason Ralphs. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
And now, tonight's comedian was recently named inaugural recipient.